Hey, Patrick, how are you today?
Hey, Andy, how are you? I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day here in Orlando. You cannot beat the weather. 78, sunny, breezy. It's fantastic.
I think it's exactly the same here. It is sunny and breezy, and I think it's 78 degrees.
That's fantastic.
I'm
So,
gonna check. It is
what?
it is
So,
78
uh,
degrees.
okay, here. Let me pull up my dark. What program is that?
Weather Underground.
Do you have
We're
that
not
app that
sponsored.
tells you? Oh, look at this, 78 degrees.
Wow.
There it is. Perfect. Andy, good to see you. It's March. A great little announcement. We're going to be having our celebration of Women's History Month coming up next week. Stay
Mm-hmm.
tuned to that. Make sure you like, subscribe, sign up to our email list at themedexperiencetv.com. We got a great show. We're going to be talking with our friends at SeaWorld Orlando because they opened up a new roller coaster very recently. Have you heard about this roller coaster, Andy?
I have heard about this roller coaster. We've had several meetings about it.
Right. Fair
And I'm
enough.
very excited to learn more about it, and certainly very excited to eventually get on it either in November or before.
Yeah, fair enough. But of course, we do like to touch on the news a little bit ahead of time. So, what parks are closed and where and why?
Well, just today, yesterday for us in China, Shanghai Disneyland closed indefinitely starting today. Uh, from the management is due to the current pandemic situation. Shanghai Disneyland Resort, including Shanghai Disneyland, Disneytown, and Wishing Star Park, will temporarily be closed from Monday, March 21st. So, yeah, here we go again.
Yeah, buckle up.
Well, China at least. China has a zero tolerance policy for COVID, whereas the rest of the world is like, eh.
Yeah, cases are pretty low here in Orlando. Actually, very very low, which is good.
They're very low here in Los Angeles too. I went into a restaurant without a mask yesterday. It was very exciting.
I was gonna say, did you feel weird? Like you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I can't believe this.
I didn't know. It was fine.
Yeah,
I'm triple vaxxed and like I've had COVID, so probably twice. So
nice.
whatever.
You got that. You did get it, didn't you?
I'm
Fair
super powered.
enough. Well, why don't Andy? Then why don't we just jump right into our discussion? It's not every moment that you have a brand new roller coaster opening
It
up.
is. It is not.
Orlando. So let's bring out a Brian and a Rob from our green room. Hello,
Good
Hi
evening.
guys.
welcome,
Fun.
gentlemen.
Thanks for
having
coming
us.
on the show.
Thanks for
Brian,
having
you
us.
would you be able to share us what your last name is there? Because I didn't want to mess it up.
Andrelczyk.
Andrelczyk. That was my guess.
Brian A works just fine.
It'll be a very good like Wordle starting word. Your last name there. You get every consonant, every vowel, and now.
It's true. Just knock them all out.
Well, welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you both on. And just to get things started, would love to get to know your history with SeaWorld. How did you begin your careers in the industry? What brought you to SeaWorld? All that kind of stuff. Why don't we go to Rob first?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks again for having us. It's a exciting time here at SeaWorld, and happy to talk about Icebreaker. But I've been with the company for 22 years. It was a summer job for me. In 2000, I started at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg in Virginia, and it was nothing more than a summer job, and it turned into a career. So I went to James Madison University in Virginia, pursuing a degree tied to the field in hospitality tourism management. And I've held a couple of roles in the company. I've worked at Williamsburg, SeaWorld San Diego. I was director of operations out there for 7 years. I was director of operations at Busch Gardens Williamsburg again, and then joined the Orlando team in the summer of 2019 as vice president of operations. So it's been a fun career. I've seen lots of changes in the industry, lots of changes with our company. And I'm very excited. I think I'm more excited now about the future for our company than I ever have been. So it's a great time, and happy to talk about how we're doing at SeaWorld.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. And then over to Brian.
I have a similar start, I suppose. I was going to Georgia Tech for my architecture degree, and I was looking for some summer jobs. Always wanted to work in the theme park industry because I like theme parks, roller coasters, all that sort of thing. So I came down to SeaWorld, and I was a photography intern. And every day as I walked into work, I passed the design engineering office, and one day I just went and said hi. And one thing led to another, and here we are. Multiple years later, that was 2009. Now we're here, and I've been with the design and engineering department for over 10 years now, just working on new projects and, big and small, everything from sidewalks to roller coasters. So it's a kind of nice variety, something different every day, which is one of those kind of fun things, I suppose. But it's just, I enjoy seeing something new every time. And like Rob said, this is an exciting time for our company. We've got a lot of just really interesting things going on, and it's fun to be a part of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I'm excited to see what happens with SeaWorld all over the world as well. I know you've got SeaWorld Abu Dhabi opening up next year, I think, which is very exciting.
Yeah, next year it opens as our first international park. It's our first park without killer whales. Mm-hmm. And the team is actively working towards it. Our vice president of zoological operations is out there right now providing his expertise. So it's a team effort, and it's going to be what I have not seen it myself, but everyone that has been absolutely blown away. It's going to be a game changer.
Is that Scott or somebody else you're talking about?
JP Peterson, John Peterson for BP Zoo. Yeah, so he's out there helping out right now.
Okay, great, cool, that's awesome. Yeah, that project's been in the works for quite a while. It's awesome to see it come to fruition, which is fantastic. Andy, do you want to take it away with our next question?
Yeah, I think let's just dive into like the icebreaker coaster. Like I don't know a lot about it. Love to learn more about how the concept came about of icebreaker, and how the ride type and the coaster type sort of played into that, and like which came first, the coaster type or the concept, or the concept or the coaster type.
So we started this a while ago now, of course, with COVID happening and everything. We had a bit of a pause kind of in the middle, but if we roll back the clock to 2018, 2019 timeframe, that's when we were really starting to have the conversations about what's next for our park as far as roller coasters go. And we've got a really great portfolio of coasters in our park, from Mako, tallest and fastest, and Manta and Kraken. And what we were really missing was a launch coaster. So from the very outset, we were looking at a launch coaster, and not just a standard launch coaster. We wanted something that had this forwards and backwards momentum, and really from the kind of very nexus of the project, we were kind of thinking in that mindset. So we began there, and then tried to find a place for it within the park. And we ended up at a really kind of unique location in our Arctic area next to Wild Arctic and the Altitude Burger restaurant. Really kind of working to put that layout together back and forth with our architects and engineer partners, and with the park team. Rob and I worked together to really understand kind of guest flow and what the ride's going to be, how it fits in the space, and just developing that from paper plan all the way up to the final ride here, which we've just opened.
Awesome. I mean, and do we have a video package to show, don't we? Maybe we can show that now.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, Andy.
Oh, that looks like a lot of fun.
Well, and
It's a great ride.
Yeah, I must say that just in general, SeaWorld, with the exception of the coaster in the Sesame Street area, with that little derby, you guys have some really crazy coasters, right? Action packed and all that, and it's awesome to see an attraction that it doesn't have the 8 inversions and all that, and it's you're not flipped up to upside down or backwards or completely going out of your mind. It looks like a very nice transitional coaster that all members of the family might be able to enjoy, which is really, really great. And I got to ask, so how was the experience, partnering with the ride manufacturer? If you want to name them, great. If you don't, no big deal. I'm not sure if that's public. But working with them and kind of developing this attraction with your requirements of with the thrill level and all that.
Absolutely. Well, we work with Premier Rides on this coaster, and we have a number of their rides within our system. This is a custom design for us. It fits in a really, really tight space in the park, which was one of the kind of design and construction challenges for sure. But it's always a collaborative effort when you work with any manufacturer, and it involves a lot of folks, from the park team, which is a number of folks here, and not just design engineering, but operations and safety and maintenance and merchandise. And, everybody has a part to play in this, and involving the ride manufacturer. Very early on, we're going back and forth saying, okay, what can fit into this site? What can we kind of squeeze into this area? We know we want a certain track length. We know we want a certain level of kind of dynamic motion. We want certain elements. We wanted our launch. We wanted to have not just one launch, but 4 launches, 2 backwards, 2 forwards. We wanted to have some pretty unique elements. Like we've got the steepest beyond vertical drop in Florida. So that's our backwards spike that's 93 feet tall and tilted at 100 degrees. So from the very outset, we're working on all these different, elements and trying to fit them into the overall space, and then bringing our architect and our engineering partners into the fold. Then we end up with working around existing utilities or working around, buildings and pathways and things like that. We're trying to snake a lot of things together into a very tight spot. So, you got to really be flexible and be collaborative as you put it all together to really, get to where we are today.
And if I could add, to Brian's point, it's when we work on these coasters years out, and we talk to our past members and our guests, and we were missing a launch coaster. It's a great way, to up the ante, to up the thrill, and it without having a ton of space. So it's a very compact site. Lots of energy on this side of the park now. As we opened Mako, and then we went to Infinity Falls, and then Sesame Street Land, and then we hit Icebreakers. There's a lot of energy here, and it's a tight footprint. But when we say it's it's great, it could be a starting coaster, for someone who Manta is can be very scary for a small child. Heck, it's scary for me some days. And you have Mako and Kraken. This is a really great entry coaster, but I always say it packs a punch. So your expectations are low, because it doesn't have the 8 inversions, like you said, Patrick. It's a low to the ground, not the tallest, not the fastest. But when you get on there, even the diehard coaster enthusiasts will be very impressed. It's very smooth. It's very repeatable. It's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that second rollback. You get almost to the top of that top hat, and then you go back and one with them.
Yeah, and every seat's different, right? I prefer riding in the front of coasters, but the back, really, you get those G's, you get the forces as you get pulled, you come out of your seat a little bit on that beyond vertical spike, and then you go over the top hat and you get pulled over the top hat. So wherever you're sitting is a different experience. I'm a front guy, but back row on this is a totally different experience than the front.
That's where I'll be sitting.
Oh, that's cool. I can't wait to ride it. Hopefully, certainly November for IAPA, but maybe before then, we'll see. That's awesome.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, so how was it working with Premiere? I mean, what was the from a marketing / engineering standpoint, what, do you just call it Premiere and be like, get me a launch coaster?
Well, they are one of the best in the business as far as launch coasters go. They're right here in the States, so they actually have an office here in Florida now as well. So it was good to be able to go back to them, especially having already had several launch coasters from Premier in our system, so we kind of know the tech. We know how to work with it, and that's a key thing, to be comfortable with what you're putting in. Especially, this being our first launch coaster, we want to have some familiarity with everything. Certainly, the site conditions prove to be especially challenging with this one, and it's just the tightness of the site. We're a bit of a landlocked park, so we're trying to get creative now in how we can put in our new rides and attractions. So for one of those things, like Rob mentioned, is being able to reuse that launch track, so we can get 4 different launch motions in one short section of track, and then we go not only in front of house but also back of house, and really snaking it between buildings and around existing utilities, and kind of working through that. So when we first reach out to ride manufacturer, we'll provide a general site and also kind of utility conflicts and things to avoid. And this is a pretty messy drawing that I gave to Premier at the beginning to say, okay, avoid all these things. And it's tough for one, but it also makes for really creative layouts and just kind of fun challenges for sure. Kind of a fun little fact about just how tight in this coaster is. Our exit ramp that goes kind of down, it winds underneath the launch track and underneath the brake run. We have about 6 inches of clearance on either side of that, because there's just so much track that's crammed into this one little space.
So do you just give them the site plan, or do you do like the layout and then they handle the engineering, or did they do the layout?
So it goes back and forth. So they provided some sample layouts about what they could do with the swing launch coaster. And we looked at a couple of different locations around the park. And then from that, I had drawn up a location here where it was eventually settled on, and kind of drew out an example layout that could fit in the space, kind of based on their original document they had provided. And then from there, it just goes back and forth, and we look at it and say, okay, well, we need to make these adjustments from utility conflicts, or just spatial configuration, or then just things for fun. So we added in the airtime hills that you saw on either side of the launch track, which honestly is one of my favorite parts, because with the 4 launches, each of those hills gets a little stronger every single time. So by the 4th launch, you get this really kind of incredible lift out of your seat that you was kind of just a little bit of floater in the very beginning, but now it's just really strong on that 4th launch. More things like taking our vertical spike there and making it beyond vertical. So maybe make those little adjustments both for function and for fun.
Awesome.
That's great. Well, and so with SeaWorld, there's always animal conservation at play in your experience. Very important to SeaWorld, and we know it's a huge part of your organization's mission. How did the icebreaker theme incorporate that theming, and how does it branch together with conservation?
Yeah, no, I could take that. So like we said, it's in the wild Arctic area of the park, right? So what we really like to say, at SeaWorld, we're the only place where you can ride a thrilling coaster like Icebreaker, step off, and then get up close and personal with a beluga whale, a harbor seal, or a walrus, because it's right next door. So Icebreaker, the theme being wild Arctic, and you're going through the ice, fits perfectly with the overall area where the ride was designed. But we say, see it here, save it there, right? Yeah, you get a new appreciation for these animals when you get up close to them and just see how magnificent they are. I mean, I'm in awe when I walk the park all the time, and getting up close to these animals is pretty awe-inspiring. But for us, there's no new habitat for this ride, right? If you go to Manta, it's got one of the best aquariums you'll ever see. So there isn't a animal aspect exactly tied to Icebreaker that's brand new. So we wanted to partner with someone. So we partnered with the Alaskan Sea Life Center, and they're the only rescue center in the state of Alaska. So for opening day, we had their president and CEO come out and speak about our partnership and how we help and work together, because it's not just the animals in our care, right? SeaWorld, we've saved over 39,000 animals. We're approaching 40,000 animals. And that's not possible without our guests coming and supporting us. And we wanted to support an organization that does so much good for animals up in Alaska and just fits perfectly. Wild Arctic, Icebreaker, the Alaska Sea Life Center. So it's a group that goes hand in hand.
That's great.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there were any new animal enclosures integrated into the attraction, but like you said,
not here for this one. It was focused on the coaster itself. But over the years, we've added a lot of rides and attractions at SeaWorld Orlando and all of our parks, right? So, like I said earlier, we did Infinity Falls, which, if you like water rides, it's the best one out there. I'm biased, but it annihilates you with water. Sesame Street Man for the kids is perfect. And Mako was before those two. So lots of rides. But this past year, we've done a lot at SeaWorld Orlando. We redid our Dolphin Stadium, our Sea Lion Stadium, our Dolphin Cove area, our Dolphin Nursery, our Shark Encounter. The dates back to the 80s, right? So fun fact, Jaws 3 was filmed at SeaWorld Orlando. And the actual restaurant, before it was the restaurant, that was the command center, the under base command center in Jaws 3. So it was a little bit of a dated area. It really needed some more life. And it is, we spent some money and time in there and really enhanced the entire area. So while there's not an animal component that's brand new to Icebreaker, we've invested heavily over the past 12 to 18 months. And we will continue to do that because, again, this is where you get to see amazing animals, not just rides. We have a great portfolio of events, attractions, shows. So there's a little bit of everyone for everyone at SeaWorld.
And like you said, you can literally just step off into the beluga whale exhibit.
It's
and all the others ones and the penguins and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the penguins.
Me too.
So, like, what would you say is the story of the attraction? Is there like a thematic kind of story to the coaster, like Icebreaker? Is it like a Icebreaker ship, or is it a portmanteau?
There's not a strong storyline to it, I should say, right? It's the name, when we go through a naming process, so we're looking at attractions in the future and we start looking at names, what makes sense. The name just really rings a bell. You're breaking through the ice, you're launching, you're gaining speed, the tallest beyond vertical spike, and you're looking down the entrance. There's some rock work that looks like ice, but it just goes hand in hand with the entire area. And we had a restaurant there called Mango Joe's, and that got a whole new facelift to become Altitude Burger. So it's all bright oranges and blues. It's a glacier bar, which is right across the pathway. So it's just the evolution of the area, and ties perfectly again into Wild Arctic, which is, I think, one of the best exhibits in the park where you see these animals. But it's a frozen area where there is a ship that got stuck. That's the story of Wild Arctic, and Icebreaker kind of ties hand in hand with that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't think every coaster needs to have like a 20-page backstory. I was just curious.
Yeah, at the end of the day, right? I think the ride speaks for itself, and it's just a really fun, repeatable ride. So on media day, I rode about 15 times, doing live TV hits. And the older I get, the less I can ride rides. Yeah. So being able to ride it 15 times live on camera speaks for the ride, repeatability of this attraction. So but again, it will exceed your expectations for sure.
Yeah, I like to call this coaster almost unassuming in that it's not our biggest, not our fastest. I mean, it's 90 feet tall, 93 feet tall at most. Our top hat element's only 80 feet tall, but the ride packs a punch. Like, there's a lot of good airtime in there, and it's really strong airtime too. It's one of those rides that I've seen a lot of people, listening to guest feedback as they're coming off on the ride. You see a lot of folks saying, "Wow, that was really more than I thought it was going to be," and it was really intense, really fun. It's good to see those sorts of reactions because I think we're going to surprise a lot of people.
Oh, that's great. Kind of that piggybacks onto my next question, or sets it up, which is, it's been open for about a month. What's the reception you've been getting from guests?
I think guests, I guess, to Brian's point again, it exceeds your expectations. So you're getting on this ride, and it's not the fastest, tallest. So you're kind of like, okay, let's hop on, and you get off like, wow, that's fun. It's fast. It has more airtime maneuvers than Mako. And, Mako last year was voted the #1 coaster in the United States. And it has more airtime than Mako, which doesn't seem to make sense. You don't really think that's going to be the case, but it does. So people come off like, wow, that is great. And they get back in line. So it really, again, it's just the easiest way to say is it will exceed your expectations, and guests are loving it. It's been a great addition to, our portfolio. We have 6 coasters. We are Orlando's coaster capital, we like to say now. And this really adds to that portfolio, missing that launch, missing this just really, not that the other rides are not repeatable. They certainly are, but they are more intense rides. I think we could all agree on that with Mako, Kraken, and Manta. And this is just a very repeatable attraction.
Yeah, Manta is one of my favorite coasters. I can't wait to ride this one. I love the airtime.
Well, and this rounds out the portfolio so nicely. I mean, like Rob said, if you look at this kind of holistically of what kind of coasters can you have and what kind of seating positions or elements or things like that, we really check almost all the boxes. There's a lot to be had here, from airtime and speed and inversions and laying down on floorless and launches. I mean, it's all there.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, we have a question. I think before we move on from Jeffrey, from the project management standpoint, like I think Jeffrey, I also am interested just to get more granular on like how does this happen? How do you go? Like I said, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. You call it premiering and like get us a coaster, but like what's the sort of like day to day in terms of like before you actually start construction, and even during construction, and like what's the process? Can you walk us through like the development process?
Sure. So our corporate engineering group will kind of start this ride out. So they're going to start talking with our park leadership team and really kind of understanding what the demographic is that we want to fill. So we want this kind of medium level thrill ride that's going to be that sort of middle ground, knowing early that we want a launch coaster and things like that. So the corporate engineering team is going to contract with Premier in this case, and then from that point on, we really start into the design process, and that's where Rob and I are going to be intimately involved in the very beginning to say, okay, we're looking at capacity, we're looking at how do you access the space, and I'm bringing an architect at that point where we're going to talk about queue, and we're going to talk about exit and handicap access, and what does the station look like? How do the gates set up? How do the rails or the queue rails and everything? Where do we put a TV showing the safety spiels and all of those sorts of things? And then that all sort of happens in parallel. So we'll be working on the design for the coaster, and we'll be working on the design for the site and kind of the everything else. We were able to reuse an existing structure for our queue area, which is great because now it's a nice covered queue, which is fantastic in the hot Florida sun, especially in the summer here as we're quickly approaching some heat. But as far as then the ride goes, we're having weekly meetings on the computer with our team and the Premier team and some of the folks from Premier's team all the way from Germany even, just to really kind of work through all of the details from like a ride control system and an electronic system. With the launch coaster, you've got a very kind of heavy load from an electronic and a launch control standpoint. So there's a pretty big building here that houses all of our launch control cabinets and has a pretty big load from an electrical standpoint. So we need to work with our engineers to make sure we can bring in, that feed. And then there's a lot of programming on the back end to, make the ride do what it does. And one of the things that's kind of overlooked sometimes, if you recall from the POV, you actually start with a horizontal track switch, and that's pretty rare to ride one of those. Usually those are what we use to take the train on and off of the track into the maintenance area. But this one you ride, which it allows us to run 2 trains at one time. But it also just provides kind of a unique experience. But the challenging thing with that from an engineering perspective is that We have a moving track switch. This is going to move every minute, every minute of every operating day, and it has launch magnets on the track. So we need to run cables that we can move back and forth, and we need to account for expansion, contraction. It can actually get cold sometimes in Florida, so we need to make sure that this piece of equipment, which is going to grow and shrink as the days get warmer or colder, can still operate, consistently and reliably every single day. And so there's a lot of different challenges that go into those sorts of things. And that's what we get everybody together in the room to kind of work through those things.
I'm very excited about you mentioning riding the horizontal track switch. That's I would have gone on and been like, oh.
It's unique. It's fun.
Yeah.
And I think what gets me, is little things, from like an engineering perspective. One of the things that surprised me very early on is how fast not only the track switch happens, but how fast it locks and launches. So you stop moving on your switch, and within a couple of seconds, you're already heading backwards. So it's a pretty fun, quick turnaround for that sort of thing.
That's awesome. And of course, I have to ask, what is there BGM that's unique to the attraction in the cube?
There is, yeah. So we also work with our entertainment team hand in hand with this, and from a ride lighting perspective to the music. So there is some music in the realm, and some iceberg crackling noises. So it's a pretty cool BGM that you'll experience. And then I think of course, Brian's the engineer, so he hit all those points in the head. The only thing I would add is changes late in the project get expensive, right? So when we start working on rides or anything, a new restaurant, a new exhibit, a new show, doing them early and making sure you go through the plans in detail, the placement of where the phone is, where the switch is, all those little things make a big difference. And if you miss it early, which you're always going to miss something, if you miss something, the cost goes up exponentially once the facility is designed, right? So we're looking at just making sure everything's where we want it to be perfectly. But then from a capacity standpoint, working through the programming of how long it takes from hitting the button for the train to dispatch, or where the operator controls are so they can respond quickly to, every second counts when you're dealing with a ride and ride capacity. So looking at all those small ins and outs, a lot of experience comes into play. Opening attractions and going through this experience over and over again helps. But you're always going to miss something. But it's funny when you look at a drawing early stages, and then later on in the process it come to fruition. It's an exciting feeling when you get to open and the guests get to experience it, and all your hard work pays off.
Well, I must ask. So you kind of alluded to it, right? Being very proactive in this experience so that you can shave off time. So you both, Brian and Rob, you have very lengthy careers. Were there any specific challenges from past projects or attractions you were opening up or teams you were a part of that helped Icebreaker succeed thanks to that prior knowledge?
I can start at a high level, and I think Brian can go into more of the details. For me, I was involved with Tempesto in Williamsburg, Electric Eel in San Diego, which are both skyrocket coasters by Premier. So I know the control system and the layout and how the ride operates. So previous experience working on those coasters certainly assists as you design something. But in terms of the ins and outs, I'll defer to Brian on his thoughts there.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. When you do more of these in a row, you take all those learnings from the previous ones. So every project that we do, we have a lessons learned that we talk through afterwards to say, okay, what went right, what went wrong, what were the things that we missed. We look through all those changes that were made. Rob was alluding to the fact that last minute changes can be expensive. So let's look through all those changes and see what happened and why did it happen. Is it something that we can do from the outset in this case to help us get to where we need to go? And certainly being the kind of fourth launch coaster that Premier had done for us, it really helps get that whole system, knowing where to put the ride cabinets, how to run the electrical and the cabling to certain areas where the locations need to be of these things, making sure we get all of the necessary needs. We get the operator positions correct. We get the operator presence devices correct, so we can account for everybody there. And just really taking away those sorts of learnings about how to improve on what you did last time. You never want to make the same mistake twice, so you always want to take that away from the last time and make sure that you get all those things correct.
Yeah, it's just fun doing the little ins and outs. I kind of my trademark. My team sometimes gets annoyed with it, but my thing I always do when I open a ride is it's a small thing, but I put the test seat into the queue line as opposed to being outside the queue line, right? So if it's in the plaza for the ride, it becomes another seat for a guest, right? And it's guests who need to try on the seat to make sure they can experience the ride. They miss it. So every coaster I open, or try to retrofit, I place the test seat in the queue line. And it's a small thing, but again, trying to do that later on costs money. So it's just one of those things that's what I always do. I think it works well. So you learn a lot when you go through opening attractions, and you have your little nuances that you bring to each new project. And that's just one thing that I always try to do because I think it enhances the guest experience. So, coaster seats and vehicles can be quite restrictive. They're not always as forgiving. So I think it's important to get that out front for the guests to see before they get into the line.
So, yeah, Patrick, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah. So instead of being out front, do you do it like during the greeter position or kind of partway through the queue?
So it depends. I try to do it right after the greeter position, right? So you come into the line and you have to walk past it. It's in your face. You can't miss it. I moved the Mako one from the plaza. It's actually probably 30 feet past the greet position. So, and you walk right at it. So you can't miss it. And, we want to be sensitive, right? Because it's when you're in a coaster station, if you're unable to be accommodated by the lap bar or the restraint system, it can be embarrassing, right? So I think this is an important way to get it out there for everyone to see without some child eating a turkey leg in the ride plaza using it as a bench.
Yeah, I had that experience on the Poltergeist coaster at Six Flags over Texas. When I got into the coaster thing, you had a bunch of teens trying to stuff me into the seat and get the restraint to click, and it just wasn't happening. And it's like you're holding up the whole process, and everybody's in the train waiting for you. Everybody's in a load looking at you, and it's not a fun time. Yep. And I think that it's an excellent idea to move it a little bit further into a more intimate setting, so that like you're not on display as you try to jam yourself into this seat. And Patrick and I are tall and wide people, and I can speak from experience that I think that's a really smart move. Cool. Well, like you guys are, I think, the ones to ask this. I mean, like, is there room in SeaWorld Orlando for more coasters and more fun?
There's always room. We just got to get creative.
No, there really is. Like to Brian's point, we are landlocked, right? There's the streets all around SeaWorld, and we have our Aquatica water park across the way and Discovery Cove the other direction. So expanding out really isn't an option. But reinventing our existing portfolio of attractions, like I said at the beginning, when we redid the shark encounter, you can almost market it as a new attraction, and it looks like a new attraction. So there's ways to just kind of bring older areas up to date to our current standards and looks. But there is more footprint in SeaWorld, certainly where we can redo an attraction, redesign it, start from scratch, or we can take something out, an existing asset, and put another one in, or there is footprint in the park where we can add other attractions.
Awesome. Well, that's good news. I think that's good news for SeaWorld fans for sure, and coaster fans.
We cannot confirm or deny, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see another coaster down the road.
I would not be surprised, but I would be thrilled in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it would be bigger news if you were to say there will never be another coaster at SeaWorld. That would be big news.
No, that is not happening. I can confirm that.
Good news for me. I'm always going to have stuff to build.
Yeah. Fine. So, you went through the whole process, opening up the experience, and, this is, you had similar experience in the past. This was a new experience. What were some lessons learned from Icebreaker during that process that you now have with you and your kind of your utility belt?
Brian?
Sure. It's every one you do, you learn something different, every time. So, for this one being our first launch coaster, we learned a lot about launch coasters. We learned a lot about, making sure that we have proper, sizing for, maintenance and back of house areas, the things that the guests don't see. Every one of our rides is taken apart and put back together yearly for all the trains when we do our annuals with our maintenance team. So you need to make sure you account for proper space and proper coverage for all those sorts of things. And as we get tight sites like we talked about, that can become a challenge sometimes. So really working through sort of those, bits and pieces. We've already had, certainly lessons learned, talk with maintenance saying, okay, well, we need another shed for part storage, or we need, another, this, that. And it's those things that you can more easily account for. And, just trying to learn what the utility challenges are and things like that. Our park's been around for a little while. So there's a lot of stuff in the ground. And when you learn how to deal with it, I think we found every last thing in the ground when we build Icebreaker. So it's one of those things that now we know as we get elsewhere. Now we have proper drawings for this area, and we know what we're going to encounter as we continue to explore and expand.
And I will say, it sounds funny, but this was one of the easiest attractions I've worked on, and just from the standpoint of time. Right. So COVID kind of reset how we operated and just changed everything. And we froze the project for a while. Right. So usually when you open an attraction, you have marketing in your ear saying, okay, we're opening it February 18th. I need to release that date. I need to release that date. Media has to get out there. You kind of want 4 to 6 weeks, usually, at least, of a runway to market a new attraction. And when you're going through a ride acceptance process, when you're going through the testing and the commissioning, and marketing wants to get the date out there, things go wrong. And it can be really, really tight turnaround and some creative ways of accepting a ride to make sure you're checking every single safety box and you're not skipping any steps, but still working with marketing to be able to release a date. So for this, it was, COVID's a very unfortunate situation, of course. I'm not saying taking that lightly, but it allowed us to really take our time and execute the opening we wanted to. So of all the attractions I've opened, this was it was the hurry up and wait, and it was pretty easy from a timing standpoint.
Yeah, I was starting to get the impression that this seemed like it all went pretty smoothly.
Of course, everything has its hiccups, right? And
sure.
There's no exception to that. But it did. It went really well, and the ride, knock on wood, I'm a superstitious person, is operating really well, and it has become a fan favorite for sure.
Fantastic! I can't wait.
Well, I have a nice final question here. What is your favorite guest experience or attraction or ride in the SeaWorld's Busch Gardens family? I'll start. I love Griffin, which is the floorless coaster, a dive coaster at Busch Gardens. Rob, how about you? And then we'll finish with Andy.
It's hard to narrow them down, but I will say Griffin also. That was the first ride I opened as a manager with the company. So It has a special place in my heart. But Griffin, just from the view, looking out at, beautiful James River, the world's most beautiful theme park, and you're looking down it and you're hanging. Griffin is absolutely incredible. So I will go with you, Patrick, on that one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. It's Kumba at Busch Tampa has always been one of my favorites. That was one of my first large coasters when I was younger, and it still has kind of that intensity and power to it. Although that said, Iron Gwazi, our new coaster there over at Busch Gardens, is something special, and it's really an incredible attraction. One of my favorite coasters. Was an instant classic sort of thing, and I love that. And but I'll add one more. Mako is just kind of my old reliable. I can hear it outside my office every time the train goes down the hill, and I love it. And it's one of those rides that if I ever need to just calm down or chill out for a little while, that's the ride I go to.
Well, I must say, you invoked Kumba, and there was a rumors out there, and then I believe there was a statement released. Are you able to clarify about that? I know it's not your home park or anything, but Rob, you look fired up and ready to talk about Kumba.
Yeah, I mean, there's always rumors out there, right? And don't believe everything you read online, as my mom would always say. Kumba is here, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
That's great. All right, great thing. I know you know what you get what I'm chatting about, so I appreciate it. Yep. Andy, all of the Busch Gardens SeaWorld Parks experiences, what's your favorite attraction?
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, which I hope to remedy in the near future. But Cheetah Hunt at Tampa is, I think, one of my top 10 coasters, period. It's a fantastic ride. I love the way that it tells a story with the attraction itself. Like you go up into the tree and then you dive down from the tree. And I love through the old canyon there from the safari ride. And I just was completely blown away by how awesome of an experience that was. I loved it. Loved it.
I have to agree. It's one heck of a ride. And I will say, we all went through coasters. We just talked coasters. One of my absolute favorite rides, it's not a coaster, is Finnegan's Flyer in Williamsburg, a Scream and Swing, which of course we just opened up Tidal Surge in Texas, the world's tallest Scream and Swing. Yeah. Holy crap, those things are incredible. I mean, the force when you start swinging, you think you're going to build up speed, like you get thrown backwards. It is. Yeah. When I helped open that ride in Williamsburg, it was wow. Like I would say, it's kind of a Griffin, Apollo, Verbolten, Finnegan's Flyer in that order for me. So I put it above Alpengeist and Loch Ness. I think it's so freaking cool.
I haven't been able to bring myself to get on one of those giant Scream and Swings.
They're
fun.
They're a little terrifying when you're looking straight down to the ground, but it's a blast.
Yeah, that's not my bag.
Well, I must say we had an honorable mention for The Curse of Dark Castle, rest in peace, from one of our producers. Great.
That was another ride I was involved in. It really was fun being involved in that. And it was a great ride, and the air conditioning was also nice. But I know there's rumors out there about that attraction in the future, and I think things will be looking promising there for sure.
Oh, yeah, I definitely have to honorable mention the Manta queue is one of my favorite coaster queues in the world. It's fantastic. There's the beautiful aquariums there, and it's just a beautiful experience. And I love being fully surrounded by a sculpted environment as well.
Manta kind of hits the whole package for me. It's a great coaster. It's a fantastic queue. We have a great animal habitat, and there's a non-rider experience as well for the folks who don't want to ride. They can walk through the habitat as well. There's unique, pop-ups in the aquarium section. It's got great theming. It has that really iconic wing dip element that you see in all of our advertisements. I mean, it's the total package kind of attraction, and it's a great kind of first encounter as you walk into our park.
And
I'll never forget.
Just received a new paint job.
Wow!
So Manta and Kraken both got new paint, and they both look fantastic.
I have to say, the first time I rode it was really special. It was at the IAPA Celebrates party. I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and the first time I rode it, there were fireworks going off from the pyro show. So I was on Mantas with fireworks going off around us, and it was amazing.
It's a awesome ride.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, it's great to catch up. Brian, of course, and Rob, nice to meet you. I don't think we met before this. But maybe we can meet at Shark Bar one of these days and get a nice. I live in Orlando, so we can get a nice cooled off beverage. This is fantastic. Congratulations on opening. You know, we know it's been a crazy couple of years with COVID, and opening up your attraction to, well received by the industry really is fantastic, and hitting that sweet spot. Like you said, you kind of like laser target exactly what kind of attraction you want, and just congratulations overall. And it's great to have you guys on the network, and we'd love to have you guys back whenever you want to talk about your future endeavors.
Yeah, no, happy to. Thanks for having us. And yeah, I'm always down for a beverage at Sharks Bar. And by all means, please say hi when you're in the park. And Andy, when you're out this way, we'd love to host you guys.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it very much.
All right, that's the end of our show. Thanks everybody for joining us. Rob and Brian, you can hang out in the green room. We have a couple of great shows coming up the next couple of weeks. Like, subscribe, email list, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk to you later. Bye.